Roast the peppers and tomatillos on the barbecue grill. You can roast them in the oven, but I like the flavor of the barbecue grill fire roasted. Cook the Anaheims and big peppers until they're lightly blistered on the skin. Cook the tomatillos until they start to get a little soft and watery. Mostly you're just going for the flavor of the fire roasting. You don't actually have to cook them all the way through. I decided to try fire roasting my garlic. We'll see how that goes. I just cut the ends off and decided to roast it. Now we're just going to put the tomatillos in the blender and blend them up. I'm just going to turn it on low to start with. And then just turn it up a little until it's well pureed. Okay, the big peppers, you can see how after they've cooled off a little, the skin just peels right off. And so I'm just going to peel those, take all the skin off. If you have a hard time getting it off, you can put it in a plastic bag while it's still hot, and that sweats it and helps it to come off a little better. If there's a little bit of skin left on it, doesn't matter a lot because you're going to blend it also. So then I just cut the tops off because I don't want the stem. If you want to take out the seeds, you can. The seeds add a little more heat. So I peel those. The jalapenos, I just cut the tops off. I don't usually skin them, although that one skinned easy enough. But go ahead and peel those, take the tops off, and then you can put them in the blender also. Okay, there's my peppers peeled and ready to go in the blender. If I was doing a lot of peppers, I would use rubber gloves because the pepper juice can be irritating to your skin. Be careful you don't touch your eyes or your nose when you're doing that. Okay, here is my garlic. I peeled it. It's the fire roasted garlic. It calls for 8 cloves, but I have a little bit more because some of them are so tiny. So I'm just going to put that in the blender with my peppers and blend that in with the peppers. Okay, here's my tomatillos and peppers pureed in my pot, and this is a bigger stock pot than I need, but I use this for canning. It's a big, heavy duty, thick bottom canning pot so that I don't get it scorched. So there's the main ingredients. We're ready to add all the spices. To cut my peppers and onions, I have this mandolin slicer. This is Borner, and I'll put the link on the directions below, but it cuts either mince or bigger pieces, bigger minced. I'm going to show you how fine this minces. It's really a wonderful mandolin slicer, and it comes with a bowl. Well, you can order the bowl to go with it, and I've used this. This is well used. You can tell I make a lot of bottled salsa, and I use this all the time. So let me show you how how the small one minces. Now it comes with a guard, but mine is so old and I've used it so much that the handle broke off of it, so I don't use it anymore. I'm just pretty careful with it. It's about time to order me a new one and get a new one with a guard on it, but let me just show you how fine that minces the onions. So look at that, just tiny little pieces. it looks long, but they're just not broken up. But anyway, that is just a great slicer. I'm going to use the bigger slicer because in my Chili Verde I want to have the bigger pieces of onion, and so don't try this at home without the guard, but I've been doing it for so many years I'm pretty good at being careful. I still get cut though occasionally, so but I'm going to use 4 small onions, and we need 2 large green peppers, and I've just seeded these and cut them in half, and I'm going to use my slicer. Okay, there's my peppers all chopped up. Now of course you can chop your onions small, and your peppers, these are the green peppers, you can chop them small, and then you hardly notice the chunks in the sauce, but I like the bigger chunks, so that's what I'm doing. So either way you like it. You can even puree the peppers and onions if you don't want any chunks at all. So I'll add these to the pot. And there's the sauce with the peppers and onions in it. Now we'll add the rest of the ingredients. Okay, for the meat, I'm using pork loin. This is pork loin that I got at the grocery store. It was 99 cents on sale, 99 cents a pound, so watch for good sale prices like that. We're just going to cube it up and put it on a baking sheet and put it in the oven to broil. And you don't have to cook it because the pressure cooker will cook the meat all the way through. We are just going to brown it or cook it enough that the pink is out of it. We don't want to have the pink color. You don't want it to look like raw meat in your jars. So we're just going to cube that. Make sure you use a nice sharp knife, and put that on a baking sheet. Spread it out. And you don't need to worry about cutting out all the membranes and all the fat and stuff, because when you pressure cook it, it just makes it so tender and good that you don't even notice that it's there. So you don't have to worry about all the little membrane parts. Okay, here's the cubed pork. It's all spread out on a baking sheet ready to put in the oven. And I've got the oven on broil, and it'll just take about 10 or 15 minutes. Then we'll stir it and cook it 10 or 15 minutes more, and that'll be good enough. All right, I've taken the juice from the first pan of pork that I cooked, and I strained it, and then that gave me about 2 cups of broth. And I'm going to just add chicken broth until I have 4 cups of chicken broth and pork broth. And then I'm going to add that to my mix. Then we're going to add 1/4 cup lime juice. And 1 tablespoon dried oregano flakes. 2 tablespoons cumin. This is the powdered cumin. 1 tablespoon coriander. 1 tablespoon smoked paprika. This is got a good smoky flavor to it. and 2 tablespoons dried cilantro. Now, if you really like cilantro, you can use fresh cilantro and you can add more than 2 tablespoons. Of course, this is dried, but my husband doesn't love cilantro, so I don't put a lot of cilantro in this sauce. Okay, we also want a tablespoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of sugar. That just helps take a little bit of the twang out of it. And then we want 1/4 cup salt, and you want to use plain salt. You don't want to use iodized salt. Whenever you're canning, you don't want to use iodized salt. Okay, that's all of our ingredients. We're just going to put this on the stove now and let it simmer and cook down a little bit, and we will cook the rest of our meat while we are waiting for this to cook down some. Okay, the pork's been in about 10 minutes, and I'm just going to turn that over so that we just make sure and get all of the kink out of it. That's pretty much done. Okay, that actually is pretty good, so I'm going to take it out. I've just got it on a pot on my stove to keep warm until the sauce is ready. Okay, I have my meat that I've kept warm on the stove while my sauce is cooking. I'm just going to take a jar. The jars I've washed and cleaned and sterilized so they're nice and warm. And I'm just going to put the meat into the jars, and I'm going to fill it up with about 3/4 full of the pork. Now this pork, again, is not cooked all the way through. Okay, and I'll just continue filling these jars until I've used up all my meat. Once we've got our jars with the meat in it, about 3/4 full, loosely packed, we're going to take our Chili Verde sauce. Here it is. It's been cooking for about an hour. I simmer it kind of a soft boil and stir it quite often so that it doesn't scorch. And I let that cook for about an hour. It cooks down and thickens a little bit. Then we're just going to add that to the jar. Add it up to the neck of the jar, right about that full. And then we need to take a knife and just go down the sides of the jar to get all the bubbles out. That way the juice can go down in amongst the meat and make sure you don't have any bubbles down in there. And then add just a little bit more sauce to get it up to right to the neck of the jar. You need to leave the top for headspace in the jars. So fill each jar up with sauce. Use the knife to get all the bubbles out. Just stir it around a little bit and let the sauce get down inside around the meat. Finish filling the jar. And fill up all the jars. Then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, once you've got the jars filled, take a clean dishcloth, wash off the top of all of the jars. Now in this batch, I got 13 jars of sauce. Then you're going to take a pan of water and put in the clean, brand new lids. Don't reuse your lids. And you're going to put these on to simmer until they come to a boil. That's going to sterilize the lids and get the rubber soft and ready to go on the jars. One little tip is that I use a tiny bit of vinegar in my pan so that I don't get the hard water white film on my lid. Okay, stack your jars in the pressure cooker. I've got about 2 quarts of water, maybe 3 quarts of water in there. And I'm going to put a little bit of vinegar in there because that's going to keep it from getting the white film on my jars. Now, this one's a tall one, so I can stack my last 4 jars as a second layer. Secure the lid and then turn on your heat. And you want to start with a pretty high heat. And once it gets up to pressure, you'll have steam coming out of the nozzle. Then you're going to put on your rocker, and then it'll start to go up to pressure. My altitude here in Utah is pretty high, so we have to pressure cook at 13 pounds of pressure. And so check with your area, but meat you need to do at about 10 pounds, but if you're at a higher altitude, you'll want to do it higher. So we're going to cook this. For pints, you only need to do meats for 75 minutes. But this is kind of a very lean meat, so I like to do it for 90 minutes. That makes it just a little more tender. So we're going to set the timer. You start timing once it reaches pressure, and then we'll time it for 90 minutes. Okay, this is already up to pressure. I have turned the temperature down a little bit. We want to keep it at just under 15 on this pressure gauge. And the rocker is on so that the steam escapes so that it's safe. And I'll just regulate the pressure. I'll start the timer and time it for 1.5 hours. Okay, I've lifted the lid on the pressure cooker. Look at that wonderful salsa verde pork inside. We just put it out to cool and let the jars seal. After the jars have cooled, make sure you push down and there should be no give in the lid at all. That ensures that they have sealed tightly. Then I label mine and put the year on it. Okay, let's open this and see what it's like. Make sure when you open it, you get a good sound of popping that lid. Okay, let's pour this into the bowl. Let's see. Got nice chunks of meat, lots of good green chili verde sauce, and that meat is really tender. You can just smash it with a fork, break it apart, and it's yummy. Put it on, scoop the pork out, put it on a tortilla, add some cheese, roll it up, and scoop the sauce over the top for a smothered burrito. Pour it over some rice. There's lots of different ways you can use this in your cooking, but this is wonderful. I hope you give this recipe a try. Yum. Yummy, yummy. Pork Chili Verde.